attention span is very less in social media, so you can't keep up with trends on social media, I guess.
Every time, like every 2 weeks or something, there's something new and something changes a lot. No matter what technique it was, if I saw somebody else doing it, I was like, no, I have to figure out how to do this myself. I have to try it out.
You have to read books, or you have to read articles, or you have to keep up with all the trends which is going on in the industry. You have to keep up with new tools, new softwares which is running around.
Seeing if it works is very important.
Yeah.
It's not just blindly trying anything and everything out,
Correct,
or it's not
correct.
just blindly following a trend.
Yeah.
It's figuring out like, okay, is this useful? Is this not? Hi everyone, welcome back to the It's Rendering podcast. And as usual, we'll be talking about how we craft thoughtful experiences and how you can too. So, continuing with Varun, as always, our pillar of support.
As always.
Yes.
Recording third episode with me.
Is it? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, you're part of the whole process.
Yeah.
So it's fine. So, yeah. But we've been talking about like presentation and designing and all of these things, right?
Yeah.
What I want to know is how do you keep yourself updated? Because when we started working together, what you used to produce then, although we matched, our sensibilities match, was very different from what you produce today.
Yeah, right.
I'm not saying it's better or worse. It's different.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah, I think as a designer or as a creative person, you have to like keep up with everything, no matter what field it is. Like, for example, you are designing, you just don't have to just scroll to the social media. That's not enough. You have to read books. You have to read books, or you have to read articles, or you have to keep up with all the trends which is going on in the industry. You have to keep up with new tools, new softwares which is running around. That's how you you can create new or modern designs, or you can be creative as possible. Because if you are just design,
Sorry, just need to ask, what do you mean by modern designs?
right? So like I think in our last episode where we discussed like why, like we can just look at the website if it's like 90s website or like it's a new modern, because there are some tools and elements which is like in a design sense it's very old school. I'm not sure how to explain that, but if you know what's going on in the industry, you will be able to easily recognize what's old, what's new. I think that's one way of telling it, but I think that's a very vague way.
No, but I think that's a valid point, right? You're looking at what's out there.
Yeah, right.
And then you're trying to figure out where does this fit in also.
Correct.
Right? And are you also looking at what's out there to figure out how you should do it? Or are you just looking at it out there like, oh, it's good to know?
No, I think if it's good to know, then if you're not implementing in what you didn't do in a daily life, that's not going to work, because you'll still keep on doing the old thing. If you're seeing something new, or if you looked something new, go try it out. Even if it's not for your own purpose or work purpose, just try it out. Like you at least you would know what that does, what that tool does, or what that new style would do. Because later you would like, you can use it in your design, or you can use it later, but you still know how to do that.
To your point, like I don't know about what it's been like for you, but for me at least, like with photography, for example, I used to like, no matter what technique it was, if I saw somebody else doing it, I was like, no, I have to figure out how to do this myself. I have to try it out. I could have created the worst possible photograph that existed that anyone's ever seen.
Yeah.
But I've tried it out. I've learned something there. But I've also noticed myself as I've grown older, and probably as I've more like as my art form has matured, perhaps I've stopped trying. Like I'm very sure, like, okay, this is what works, this is it, that way. So then how do you step outside that? How do you get yourself like, okay, I saw something out there? And also balancing, because at one point it was a hobby and then it's become work and then whatever else today.
Right. I think I was having a conversation with Jeet last week. So while we were on call, so he was like, he was using some tool. So in that he was using masking wala tool. So
Photoshop.
Yeah, Photoshop. So he was like, he knows one thing to do with mask, like you can just blur it out or something, but there are a lot more things you can do with masking. So thing is, you have to try it out with yourself. Like you have to sit for few hours and try it out, like what that tool does, what that specific tool might do in different kind of designs with different type of styles. And if you're not getting, you go up to the online YouTube or any other article, you can read about that stuff, and you can try new things out of that. Because I think Jeet only told me this, once he went into UI, he completely stopped doing what like in graphic designing. So ultimately you will forget everything. no matter what you do. So same for me. I used to do 3D, but right now if you tell me ki go and do something, I can't do because I have stopped doing that. You have to, if you are interested in that, if you have to grow in that tool, if you have to grow in what you're doing, you have to try new things. You have to keep up with all the trends which is going on, going in the
But
industry.
you can still handle 3D and like
Yeah,
After Effects or something,
yeah,
right?
I
Because
can still
I've
do.
seen you do that.
Yeah, but it's just about the experience which you are telling, right? If you're not keeping up the, I know the old one. Like I can do the basic modeling, but there are a lot more things which have come over the past few years. So if I have to keep up with that, I have to learn about that. I have to know what's new, because there are a lot of tools which saves a lot of time. And sometimes we stick with the old process and we might end up like losing our time, like we just waste our time. But that tool saves a lot of time. Like last week I was watching this Pixum Perfect's one video. So I was really shocked of seeing like he used one tool, like it's just a small button, like it's just one button which selects the sky.
I
And
think I've seen this. Yeah.
yeah, I've never used that tool. Like it exists, but I never use that. So I think it saves a lot of time. You should know the long process. You should know the manual process, but you should also keep up with all the new tools which is going around, because ultimately if you are, if you are having a time crunch, if you are working across the time, so you might need that tool. It will be very useful in your projects, so like that.
I think what you said about like, oh, you should know the manual process. I think that's important because a lot of times when we look at people who are older than us, they've done it a certain way, or they look at the way that we do it.
Yeah.
There's this disconnect that happens. They think that, oh, we don't know anything. We think that they've never changed.
Right.
But I think both has their place. Like it's like saying, I have a power drill versus, like learning to drill by hand. Like you need to know both. You need to have both, because what if there are times where you can't use one or the other? You have to pick one only, and there's only one that you can use. They
Yeah.
have their purposes, right? Like masking, like Sky. I think was it last year when we were talking about luminosity masking, like things like that.
Right.
So you need to know all of these techniques.
Yes.
But there are other techniques today that probably saves you time. Maybe if they don't work, then what then you can't get stuck, right? You have to understand how these things work.
Yeah.
But it's not just understanding how they work in a sense like, oh, this if I click this, it does this. Maybe
Right.
understanding how it does it also. It's also mixing and matching and figuring out what works for you, kind of, right? How you can employ it in your tool set, in your expertise, in whatever you are doing.
Right. I think depends on creatives as well. Like what I use for a specific project, someone else might use that in a very different way. Like when I see that project, I was like, how could you do this? Like I've never used that tool in such way. So every tool everyone uses in a different way, and like every tool has a different, very like multiple purpose, and it can be used in a very different way. So yeah.
And it's like they say in maths, right? There are multiple different ways to get the right answer.
Correct.
It's like there are many different ways to do the same thing. You figure out what works best for you.
Yes, yes.
And like I've learned a lot, like even with learning Photoshop, I've learned a lot from people who I'm not even in the industry. I just watch the way that they do it, whether it's graphic design or something. I don't design in Photoshop. But I've just learned the way that they use those tools in a way that I wouldn't use it otherwise. And then suddenly I'm like, oh yeah, this actually helped me grow, helped me try it out, at least learn something.
Yeah.
But then you have to keep at it, right? I can't just do it today and then not do it for like 1 year or 2 years.
Right.
Then I'm lost again.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think this also comes down to like AI. Like there are a lot of tools which is very helpful in our
You're going to go controversial territory, bro.
No, I'm not going into like
Yeah.
the complete AI part, but there are a lot of tools which saves a lot of time in our day-to-day process. Like there are a few tools which is like mind blowing, and you can just do crazy stuff out of that. But so a lot of time we think like it's AI, we are not putting our creative stuff there, but it's not like that. You know what you do, but you are getting a help from somebody which is saving your time, and that's important, I guess.
Creative directors, for example, they're not always the ones who are doing the groundwork.
Right.
But then how are they a creative director? Like today, like the Golden Globes just happened, right? Christopher Nolan won. So he went up there and he said, directors, we can't take credit because it's the team. But at the end of the day, if it wasn't one person's vision, then it would have fallen flat also.
Correct.
So does that mean that, oh, that was the least important person? No, everybody was equally important, right? So it's this one tool. It's probably like, okay, I have an additional arm to help me out, whatever.
Right.
But then how do you keep up with all of like, because with things that are moving so fast, like I'm just saying, like with web, I've been talking to our developers also and just telling them like, okay, you need to keep up with what's there, because every time, like every 2 weeks or something, there's something new and something changes a lot. And then they come back and like, oh, this was not possible. I'm like, yeah, it's possible. Go here, click this, click that. It's done. They're like, oh, I didn't know this. Like, yeah, because you never kept up with the change log. Like, it just takes 2 minutes, So how do you, I mean, it's different for everyone. Obviously, everyone has their own process. I use a lot of Facebook groups. I know it might sound outdated by saying that, but it helps because it's community. How do you recommend keeping up with trends.
I think there are a lot of like articles. Like if you go up to a Adobe site, there are like tons of articles which keeps on updating for a daily life. Like there are design trends going on. There are like multiple things. I can't name it, but a lot of things which is going on in the daily life. Like you can just read it out. You can go to the. You can also if there are two new update launching on, you can try out the beta version. You can see what's new up there. So it's like that. You have to keep if you have to give yourself time and go up to the internet and look for stuff like which is new, and can't just go to the social media and scroll by ye new tool hai वैसे you can't do that. You have to sit and give some time to that.
I think to your point about the articles that are being put out, one of the biggest things, best things that people put out is like, oh, trends for 2024. But,
Yeah, right.
I mean, we're recording this in 2024, so it's like that. Sure, it might not actually be trends for 2024.
Yeah, right.
But just watch it.
Yeah.
It barely takes like what 2 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and you don't have to watch the whole video. Just skip through to the parts that are important.
In 0.5x.
No, two x.
2x.
Yeah. So yeah, actually, by the way, what's this also in 2x? Just say. So to your point about articles and like a company like Adobe, for example, or Pixel Perfect, a video, all of these people are not just putting it out there when it's unimportant. They're putting it out because it's important. Right. They see the industry in a way that you probably don't.
Right.
They might even be trendsetters in the industry. So it's very important to keep up with what they are doing, right?
Right. If you're not very, keen into reading articles or stuff, you can just go and watch their YouTube videos and you can just read what they are saying. But I'm not saying like you should not read articles. You should, like, it's important. But if you're not having some time to read that, you can go up to the internet and just watch that video. Like you said, right? It might not be like 2024 trend, but it's still new to the industry. Like something is new and something is coming out. So you can just keep up with that and try it on in your project.
Just in like in your just to build your skills.
Yeah, build your skills, right?
Because I think that's one thing that a lot of people miss out. Like, this is my work, and I'm only going to do this in 8 hours a day or whatever it is. Why don't you use those 8 hours a day, even if it's 1 hour a day? Build your skill set, try something new, or learn something new.
Yeah.
And to your point, you were saying articles are not like unimportant. I think reading is one habit that a lot of us miss out on.
Right,
Because very it's very easy to just go to social media. You are given a lot of reels and a lot of carousels. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't have like, share, and subscribe us. They're not us. We're useful. So
I think social media is like a river of a lot of things. You'll at one point you'll see a value content and
flood,
other
man.
the other content you might see a very like a person dancing on the screen. So your brain might not able to keep up with what you have seen earlier. So reading articles is like one focus. You'll just focus on that one particular piece of content, and you will remember it for a long time. But social media is like 2 seconds. You don't have like attention span is very less in social media, so you can't keep up with trends on social media, I guess. Like it's important, but it's not a daily thing which you can do, like to keep up with all the new things.
I think what you're also getting at is that's not the only thing you should be doing, right? Like, it's not unimportant.
Yeah,
like
it's
you
important.
should be on social media. You should be there. Like, even for like, I think we have this thing also, right? We follow people that we learn from, or
Right.
people who inspire us, and it's not necessarily just our expertise, our areas of expertise. It's around like different kinds, but it also translates into doing other things to keep up, right? It's not just a video that I watch.
Right.
It's not just an article. Maybe there are other media also that's there, right? And I know a lot of people say that, oh, books are dying out at one point, whatever. It's not the case.
Yeah.
I don't think you can get to a certain level without getting into a habit of reading also.
Yeah, I never had a habit of reading, but I think you pushed me to it.
Okay.
Now I'm having a habit of reading books. I think it's very important.
I just dump books on you. Like, there you go.
I think in this sense, I also remember even this podcast. We never thought of starting it, but you just tell me, let's just start. Like, let's see what happens, and it started. Like,
yeah, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't even know if we're going to continue it, how long we're going to continue it, how often we're going to do it. We don't know, but we're trying it. We're doing it, and we're learning in many ways. And I think we were talking about this before we started recording. Also, like the first time we recorded was a different experience.
Yeah,
from
right.
the way that we're doing it now.
Right.
Like even the one that we did in person, also for me, also it's a very different experience. Like at that point, I was overthinking things. Like, what am I supposed to say? And now I'm like, no, it's fine, dude. I know we know what we're going to talk about. It's fine. And we don't over-engineer it also.
Correct. And also we were discussing if it's a new thing, we can try it out. Like, even we don't know what happens, but we can try it out. Like,
even if it's a silly suggestion that sometimes you think you might not work, yeah.
But yeah, let's try it out and see if it works, right?
But that's important, right? Seeing if it works is very important.
Yeah.
It's not just blindly trying anything and everything out, or it's not just blindly following a trend.
Yeah.
It's figuring out like, okay, is this useful? Is this not? Because I think a lot of times what we do is we're like, oh, I want it this way, or I'm going to try this. And then we just leave it at that. Can I actually take it one step forward and figure out, okay, how do you either refine it or understand, get it to a point where I'm like, okay, this isn't working, let it go.
Right.
But then how do you do that? Like, it's not just like you said, you have to try it, you have to work on it, you have to keep at it also, right? It's not just, oh, I've learned 3D at one point and then I've never touched it again. And then suddenly I'm like, oh, I'm actually a 3D artist. You're probably not, not anymore. Right? I don't mean you personally, but
Right, right. I get your point. And I
that
think
was a
it
very
is.
sarcastic. I get your point.
And this also comes down to, like, to understand this, you need to keep up with the trend again.
So I think you were reading this book, right? Steal Like an Artist. And one of the biggest takeaways that you'll find online, probably the first takeaway that you'll find that most people talk about, is that there's nothing as originality.
Yeah, right,
You know,
right.
everything you are a sum total of all of your experiences, all the people, all the art that you've consumed, all of that. So what is that? Those are trends. You've kept up with them at some point,
Yeah.
and then you've mixed and matched them to make it your own.
Right, right.
That's very important.
Yeah. And I think, like, some people take this in a very negative way as also because I've seen one reel. So what this person did is he recorded a reel, and I've seen that reel. Okay, I've consumed that content. Same content I've seen from the second person. Exactly same content. That's a copy, like exact copy. Even the content script writing is also same. So that's not a steal like an artist. That's very.
That's a steal.
Yeah, that's a steal. To be creative, you can make it as you said, like you can make it in your style. You can present it in a different way and make it as your own. That's steal like an artist.
Yeah, it's your flair at the end of the
It should not be exactly copy paste, but you should make it in your style.
So it's not just like, okay, I know what the trends are.
Yeah.
Like someone said, oh, the trend is using, I don't know, a red, or someone.
Yeah, I
was
think,
it,
yeah,
it was
I
this
remember.
Pantone thing,
Yeah,
right?
Pantone thing.
Like, sure, it doesn't mean that suddenly I'm going to go around painting my house and all of these things. No, I'm going to figure out, like, okay, sit and think, use your head a little bit. You are an artist at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can use it. No one's saying you can't. But if you only do that, then again you're missing out on so much else, right? You have to be wise about how you do it and how you spend your time, even on social media also. So how do you go about doing this? Like, how do you, maybe if you can, if you have anything off the top of your head, like, where could I go to keep up with trends, perhaps?
I think, like, a lot of industry, a lot of big people, they do their podcast as well, and I think they cover up most, like, a lot of new things which is going on in the industry. So I think you can watch that, or maybe you can just listen to that, and through them, like, they write an article, they like write blog post as well. So if you are interested in that as well, like if you want to learn more deep into it, I think you can read that as well instead of just scrolling to the social media. You can deep dive into that. There are a lot of big people who, like, talk about new things. So
it's identifying, like, your sources of information also.
yeah.
And also, I mean, to your point, you said podcast means look at other podcasts.
Yeah.
So sure, like, start with what's easiest. That's the easiest thing to do. Right? Because for one, because we said social media, for one, they're serving you that content anyway. But refine it. Like, don't just consume anything and everything. Refine that, and then move on from that. Don't just look within that very specific niche. Go beyond that, and then keep broadening your horizons slowly. If you are trying to just go at day one to know everything, you are going to know nothing at the end.
Right.
Because it's going to be too
Start
over.
slow, and eventually you'll start learning, like, where to look up for the sources. And
It's like starting with foundational stuff, right? Try that. Don't even with goals. It's not like, oh, today I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to lift 100 kilos. That doesn't
Right,
work. You
right.
have to work towards it, but eventually you'll get there.
Yeah,
I mean,
correct.
you have already got there, but I'm just saying.
Right. So same with me. Like, what knowledge resource I know today, I never knew 2 years back or 3 years back. I was, like, starting out, so it takes time.
And also sharing.
Right, right.
Because
We don't have to gatekeep it.
yeah, don't gatekeep. I think, what was it? Good designers don't gatekeep or something like that. Right? Yeah, don't gatekeep. Share, and also get from other people. Like, it's not just a one way thing. It's also education. And I know a lot of times you think, like, oh, education means that I'm just gonna put stuff out there.
Yeah.
Put stuff out there for sure. You have a team. You have friends, or make friends. If you don't have friends who do what you do, make friends who do what you do. I know for me, the best thing has been, like, one of the best things. Facebook groups. I think I mentioned this before also, right?
Yeah, I remember.
It's really been helpful. Like, I don't spend too much time on it. I probably spend like an hour a day, like, responding to people or chatting with people. But then we've got work through that, first of all. Yeah. And second, it also helps, like, me keep up with maybe tools that are there or communities, and what are those communities?
Right,
How are they thinking? Because very often you get caught in this bubble, right? Okay, this is the way that people think.
Yeah,
But then
right.
suddenly you start looking at other people and be like, oh, there are other ways to think and figure out.
I think with Facebook groups, I also remember, like, Instagram has this new thing which is called community, right? So if you're following some good people in your industry or in your niche, so you can just go up to their community and see what they post, or what they write daily, or what they share daily. So you can just keep up with what they do.
Yeah. So even one of my favorite things to do whenever someone says, "Oh, this is the trend of this year," or my top 5 tools. Right. Read the comments, because someone's gonna give you a sixth tool or a seventh tool.
Yeah, right.
Those you would not have got otherwise.
Right.
So it's broadening our horizon that way. Start small, and then go bigger and bigger and bigger. Right. I think we can, like, because you mentioned show like blog posts and all that. We are gonna work on that ourselves as well. We'll have show notes and things. We can have a bit more value content. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And maybe anything else to share. I'm thinking we can probably, I mean, there's a lot to talk about here with this topic, but we
Yeah.
can.
I think we can end it here.
Yeah. We're hungry also. Don't blame us. But yeah, so definitely like, share, subscribe. And we will try and do better as well as we're going along, because as Varun said, like, this was not something that we had overly planned. It was just something that we were like, let's try it out. So yes, whatever it is that you're supposed to be working on, just try it out. You never know. Varun and I never thought we'd be working together.
Right.
I mean, we never thought we'd do podcasts in the first place. I don't mean our own podcast, right? Working with clients also.
Correct.
We never thought we would even work on a podcast together. We were doing like some video editing, something, some design stuff, and then suddenly we get an inquiry like, "Do you guys, like, I have no idea how podcasts work. Sure, let's learn. Let's figure it out."
Yeah.
And today we're at a point where if someone comes to us for a podcast, we know exactly what has to be done.
We know the process.
Yeah.
We know the exact process. What
Yeah,
to do.
you don't have to figure it out now.
Yeah,
anymore.
correct.
In fact, we've gotten to a point where we've taught other people how to do it.
Right.
But it takes time to get there. It's not like you're going to get them day one, but keep up with it. But yeah, definitely follow National Media, follow It's Trending podcast, and let us know how you keep up with trends. Let us know what trends you would like us to talk about, perhaps. And then we'll come back. So more episodes coming our way. Thanks for tuning in, and yeah.
Thank you.